Meeting to order. If we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is the moment of silence. I'd like to dedicate this moment of silence to the 7 American heroes who recently passed in the Iran War. Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Mason.
Present.
Trustee Reinders.
Present.
Trustee Lepore.
Present.
Trustee Muller.
Present.
Trustee Schaller.
Present.
Trustee Holzhauser.
Present.
Mayor Knightsky-Troicki.
Present. Next is community recognition. We have a lot tonight. Packed house. First, we're going to bring up Ed Kerfin with the American Legion Post 2011, presenting the Veterans Support Appreciation Awards. I'm going to ask the board to join us for photos.
Cheers.
Come on, guys. Everybody up.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Board. We really appreciate this. Is there anyone here from Richard's Building Supply? Okay. I'll still read and go. Okay, good evening. On behalf of the Michael C. Oliveri Memorial American Legion Post 2011, it is my privilege to recognize Richard's Building Supply for their outstanding support of our American Legion Post and veterans everywhere. And believe me, they are a big help. Great communities are built not only on work we do, but by the way we support one another. Richard's Building Supply has consistently shown that commitment through their generosity, their partnership, and their dedication to those who have served our country. Their support has made a real difference for our post and for the veterans that we proudly serve. Tonight, we extend a sincere gratitude and appreciation. It is our honor to present this award to Richard's Building Supply in recognition for their outstanding support of our American Legion Post and veterans everywhere. Thank you for standing with those who have served. Draca, the folks, if you're from my neighborhood, they are from the Jewels. Otherwise it's the Jewel. Jewel, not the Jewels. All right. Well, good evening again, and on behalf of the Michael C. Oliveri Memorial American Legion Post 2011, it is my honor to recognize Jewel Osco for their outstanding support of our American Legion Post and veterans that we proudly serve. Again, strong communities are built through the generosity and partnerships of people who are willing to help and step forward to support those who have served our country. Jewel, or the Jewels, has consistently demonstrated the commitment through their continued support of our post and our veterans. Their willingness to give back has helped strengthen our mission and the ability to serve veterans in our community. Tonight we extend a sincere appreciation, and it is our privilege to present the award to Jewel Osco in recognition of their tremendous support of our American Legion and Post and veterans everywhere. And then thank you for standing with those who served. All right, so we all have a very special place in our heart for our first responders, and I'd like to ask Lieutenant Pete Piazza and our Undersheriff Dan Jungles to please come up. Okay. Thank you. And on behalf of the Michael C. Oliveri Memorial American Legion Post 2011, it is my honor to recognize Will County Sheriff's Office for their incredible support to our veterans and the community we serve. The men and women of the Sheriff's Office dedicated their lives to protecting our neighborhoods. But beyond the badge, you have also shown a deep and meaningful commitment to the men and women who have worn our nation's uniform. Law enforcement officers and veterans share a common bond: service, sacrifice, and the willing to stand up for others. Tonight, we thank you for your continued support and partnership and your commitment for those who have served. It is our privilege to present this award to the Will County Sheriff's Office in recognition for your outstanding support of veterans and our community. And I want to thank you, Lieutenant Piazza, and our Undersheriff, Dan Jungles, so much. We appreciate all the work you do. Thanks. Hey, Dan, can we get a couple more pictures before you go? It would just be 1 minute. Okay. Before we conclude, on behalf of the Michael C. Oliveri Memorial American Legion Post 2011, I would like to thank the officials and the residents of Homer Glen for allowing us this opportunity to present these awards during tonight's meeting. We really do. We truly appreciate the village's continued support of our veterans and our American Legion Post. To all of tonight's award recipients, thank you for standing with those who have served and who are helping to strengthen our community. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
We gotta get back up. Forgot we gotta get back up. Thank you, guys. All right, next up is Lockport Township High School varsity cheer team for second place finish at the IHSA State. So they need us back up there.
Mayor's got this.
Good evening, and thank you to those who could attend tonight's community recognition. This is an opportunity for us to highlight athletes, performers, and students. Recognition matters. We want to continue to motivate excellence, validate hard work, build a positive community and team culture, and acknowledge visible examples of what dedication and skill can achieve. I do know that not everybody could attend tonight, so like Christina said, first up is Lockport Township High School varsity cheer. They were sectional champions, qualified for state for the 21st consecutive season, and brought home their 14th state trophy. The team finished second in the large division at the IHSA state finals. I would like to call you up one at a time to receive your certificate, and if you can please stay up front for a photo afterwards. Yes. First up are seniors: Morgan Ebert, Jordan Lyerla. Oh, if you can hold the applause till the end so you guys can hear me.
No, these are the cheerleaders.
Mia Pasco, Keegan Brown, not here, Genesis Arredondo, Carly Fiorello, Maggie Calabrese, Gianna Lavati, I'm going to butcher some of these last names. Sophia Hutera, okay. Jade Penskoffer, Jacob, how do you say his last name? Is it Hinos? Kennedy Bensfield, Peyton Judd, Emma Smith, oh my gosh. Hi. Emma, what is it? Emma B. The other Emma B, Emma Brutus, Lola Alex, Nicole, Majiri, Nicole Majiri, Kayla Greenhill, go up to Mia Manzo, Sophia Friska, Sophia Janosiak, Gabby Skiba, Karina Juarez, Mackenzie Morehouse, Adeline Mahalik, and Leah Brutus. Okay. All right, picture. All right. Congrats, And I also wanted to mention, you guys are free to leave after you've received your certificates. I'm going to wait till they sit or exit. Okay, next up we have LTHS Boys Varsity Wrestling. The Boys Varsity Wrestling team were the 2026 Southwest Suburban Conference champions and sent 5 wrestlers to the IHSA state finals. Justin Wardlow finished as the only second LTHS wrestler to claim 4 state medals. Justin finished second for his 4th state medal. What an amazing career. The team was coached by Jamison Oster, Josh Zimmerman, Mike Mucha, Dan Swan, and Rob Malgoza. I will call each wrestler up to receive their certificate, and if you can please stay up here for a photo. First, we have Justin Wardlow. Julian Godina. Noah Hernandez, Anthony Sutton, Jace Vasquez, Ben Kaminsky, Isaac Zimmerman, Justin Godina, Nassim Jaber, Evan Curry, Mohammed Jaber, Chris Miller, Drew Silzer, Xavier Bersenio, and Ethan Roboletto. Silzer. Are any of the coaches? I see Oster's here. The coaches can come up. Okay, we can give it to him. I'll give it Oster his. Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, who's next? Smaller list. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Next is LTHS Boys Bowling. These gentlemen finished an impressive season with a second-place title at the IHSA State Finals. They were coached by head coach Ryan McDaniel and assistant coaches Ken Schaefer and Alan Bean. I will call each bowler up to receive their certificate, and if you could please stay up here for a photo afterwards. Riley Ambrosini, Aaron Crushell, Austin Lucchese, Evan Charist, Nathan Cantrell, Mason Strassel, Gavin Gayhart, and I'm gonna really, Nathan, is it Jellick? Jillick. And then if any of the coaches. I used to bowl. Next up, we would like to give recognition to the 3 state qualifiers from the LTHS Girls Varsity Wrestling Team. The girls brought home the program's 2nd state trophy, placing 2nd overall as a team at the IHSA State Finals. Sophie Kellner placed 4th, Rebecca Ramirez was 3rd, and Claudia Heaney took 1st place. Claudia brought home her 3rd consecutive state championship, and she is the first wrestler in LTHS girls wrestling history to be all-state 4 times. Claudia and Sophie were unable to attend this evening, so I would like to ask if the head coach, Amir, is it Thomas? Yep. And wrestler Rebecca Ramirez could come up to receive their certificates. And then this is Sophia. Thank you. Lastly, we have the Homer Junior High Show Choir. They were a participant in one of the Illinois Grade School Music Association's solo and ensemble festivals for our region. They sang for a judge that gave a score and some really great feedback. Based on the points awarded to them, they received a Division I rating, which is the highest level rating participants can receive. This wasn't exactly a competition, but it's still a great achievement for these students to showcase that level of musicianship. They sang a choir version of True Colors that featured 3 soloists. And I was going to try to get them to sing, but bringing a piano in here is not an option. So the Homer Junior High Show Choir is directed by Mr. Joseph Amato. I will call each singer up to receive their certificate and ask that you please stay for a quick photo. Lily Barron, Avery Blackmore, Amelia Carlson, Sophia Zerwin, Priscilla Franco, Charlie Kehoe, Elsa Lopez, Katie McCarthy, Ayla McKenna, Maddie Schubert, Lexi Vandell, Aubrey Ward, and I believe Leah, how do you say her last name again? Leah Wakirka couldn't be here this evening. And then if you would like to come up also, he can give.
Yes, switch together. Switch together.
I'll see you in the morning, Lexi. Oh yeah, I'll see you in the morning.
Just going to give them a second to exit. Okay, next, are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to make an amendment. I would like to move M1 up after the consent agenda, after K3.
Oh, the workshop to
Yes.
K3, okay. Any more amendments to the agenda? Or is there a second?
I'll second that. Yeah, either way.
Madam Clerk, can you call the roll on the amendment to the agenda?
Trustee Reinders.
Aye.
Trustee Holzhauser.
Aye.
Trustee Schaller.
Aye.
Trustee Mason.
Aye.
Trustee Muller.
Aye.
Trustee Lepore.
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
I will second that motion.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Trustee Lepore.
Aye.
Trustee Muller. Trustee Mason.
Aye.
Trustee Reinders.
Aye.
Trustee Schaller.
Aye.
Trustee Holzhauser.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve February 11, 2026 Village Board meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Schaller.
Aye.
Trustee Muller.
Aye.
Trustee Holzhauser.
Aye.
Trustee Mason.
Aye.
Trustee Reinders.
Aye.
Trustee Lepore.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is public comment. We have Mr. McGee, or Michael McGee.
Michael McGee, 13601 Longview Drive, Homer Glen. Hello, Madam Mayor, trustees. So I'm also have residence at 13540 Longview Drive. So I'd like to tell kind of a story about residents that you all support. So my neighbors, they both passed. We bought this property at 13540. It gets flooded every year, every spring from Long Run Creek, okay? I know that our mayor and Trustee Mason both ran on the fact that Long Run Creek, that you were going to help us. We've been there, my neighbors were there for 50 years, flooded every year, okay? I helped him put a second sump pump in before they passed. We own the house now. The reason why we bought the house was for our rescue. It's an Airbnb, the proceeds go to our rescue. In last April 3rd, I spoke to our mayor and at that time, Trustee Stallin. I said, I noticed that we were flooded in the backyard, 13540 Longview. And so there was deforestation on the other side and in a unincorporated Cook County. That flooding caused the standing water. I asked the mayor, our mayor, and Trustee Stellan, would they contact Cook County and please advise us what's going on, because that's a floodplain. So Trustee Sullivan and our mayor said, yes, we'll connect with them. And someone from the staff, the village engineer, I assume. So I was in contact with Cook County. They never received any communication from our village regarding the village engineer. So I guess that's what my point is. Are you guys supporting us? And then the other thing is, I have two other neighbors. One's a veteran, like myself, Ron Bojack. He gets flooded every year. And I have another neighbor on my other side, besides us, that get flooded. That is Anthony and Estelle Necrocious. They are 86. Ron is 82. These are the people you're flooding. Thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you. Next is Nader I'm sorry, is that Ayed? Do you have a comment for tonight? Because it doesn't say anything on here. Are you on the agenda?
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate what I said last time.
Oh, you can come up if...
Hello, my name is Nader. I live on 18032 Virginia Lane in Mokina. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. I was requesting a variance to my horseshoe driveway. This was a house that was a new build and...
Okay, so you are on the agenda tonight?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to wait till that time comes and then you can talk about it then?
Oh, yeah.
Just so there's like conversation.
I thought it was now, sorry.
No, that's okay. No worries, no worries.
Okay.
You're good. Okay. So next is reports and communications from the village manager and, from the president and other officers. Village manager Joe Baber, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As many in the village are aware, that we have been burdened with high water bills and inconsistent billing. We have been exploring many avenues addressing concerns related to Illinois American Water. Right now, there are two major issues happening within Illinois American Water. They're planning to merge with Aqua Illinois, and they have also requested a general rate increase, which may increase your water bill. The Village's home of Homer Glen is strongly opposed to the proposed rate increase as well as the merger with Aqua. Because Illinois American is a private utility, their rates are approved and its operating guidelines are overseen by the Illinois Commerce Commission. The ICC, Illinois Commerce Commission, is currently accepting public comments pertaining to these issues. Every comment entered is read by the Commission and helps to gather community impact before any decision is made. We strongly encourage our residents to check out our social media, and they will be receiving a mailing shortly regarding any comments to the ICC as it pertains to these issues that are coming before the ICC regarding Illinois American Water. Also, I'd like to report on the behavioral health and addiction recovery. We have an event coming up on March 21st. It's regarding loneliness. There will be a panel discussion. It's from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. here at Village Hall. Also, check out our social media and sites regarding this event. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move to the trustees. Trustee Holzhauser.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to send out a congratulations to the recipients of the Veteran Support Appreciation Award, and also, congratulations to all our honorees tonight from LTHS and Homer Junior High.
Thank you. Trustee Lepore.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to also recognize one of our local Homer Glen business owners has received a very prestigious award. Roseanne Corpolango, owner of Eclipse Travel, located at 15747 Bell Road, was honored with the inaugural Mass Community Champion Award. This award is a peer-nominated, so it gives special significance, reflecting the respect and appreciation of fellow travel advisors within the community. This award recognizes a member who makes meaningful impact through engagement, generosity, and leadership within the network. Congratulations, Roseanne and Eclipse Travel of Homer Glen. Also, just want to remind all the residents, there is an election Tuesday, March 17th, so be sure to get out there and vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Mason.
Nothing to report, Madam Mayor.
Trustee Reinders.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple of things. Save the date, April 25th at Culver Park. We will be celebrating Earth Day from 10:30 to 1 p.m. We'll be cleaning up the area around the pond and removing any invasive species that we come across. Lunch will be served, and the staff will be providing everything except gloves that you will need. You can go to our website to sign up if you're interested in volunteering. Also, the village will be celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. Our parade is going to be dedicated to the anniversary, and our theme is Star, Stripes, and Silver. It will be Saturday, September 5th at 10 a.m., followed by Family Fun Days in Heritage Park. I encourage all of our businesses at this time to try to participate in this parade. We had a great turnout last year. Everybody loved it, and the kids went crazy for the Family Fun Day. So it's a great way to bring our community together and for all of us to be able to spend some time together. If you have any questions, you could actually reach out to Dan Waddick or on our website. Again, Center Park. Our basketball court is in Center Park. We had so many requests for us to replace the basketball court there. We did, and unfortunately, we can't stripe it until the weather breaks. So just want to let everybody know about that. Also, we've been getting a lot of interest for pickleball. Just an update to say that we are in the process of actually getting some pricing for additional pickleball courts in Homer Glen. We are well aware that we are below the quota of what each municipality is supposed to have for a pickleball court. So we're looking at Goodings Grove Park as our next location for additional pickleball courts. And also, one last thing, just wanted to bring everybody up to date on part of our revitalization of our parks. We're not planning on taking on any new additional parks this year, but we are working on revitalizing some of our parks. And Gorham Park has been on our radar for quite some time. So we've actually come in contact with a company called Cunningham Recreation, and they are offering us a 50% grant reduction in a complete playground. So we are actually planning on voting on that at our next parks meeting. And also, just to let everybody know, we are spot on our timing for our phase 1 of the revision of Heritage Park. We've actually done some work on trying to bring down some of the costs, and we are actively researching grants and some foundation money at this time. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Muller?
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing to report, just a community service announcement, if you would. With these little bursts of spring, I just ask that all drivers do their best to not drive distracted, with bicyclists, pedestrians, and motorcycles starting to be more frequent on the roadways.
Thank you. Trustee Schaller?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On behalf of the Environmental Committee, in recognition of Arbor Day, Homer Glen Environmental Committee is looking to identify the largest trees in the village once again. The committee is encouraging residents to submit nominations for the largest examples of any living tree species found within the village. Residents and stakeholders are invited to search for large trees in forests, parks, and on private property, provided they have permission from the property owner. The Environmental Committee will verify the measurements of nominated trees, and the largest verified tree of each species will receive recognition. Please have your submissions in prior to May 1st, and the committee encourages the community to participate in celebrating and documenting Homer Glen's natural resources.
Thank you. Madam Clerk? No report. Village Attorney?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just briefly, just want to add a little bit to what Village Manager Baber shared with everyone earlier. As most of us are very well aware, that Illinois American Water has 2 docket cases currently pending. The first one is the rate hike increase case, which is 26-0127, and the second one is the merger, and that's 25-1057. As Village Manager Baber shared, public comment is open for both dockets. I urge all the residents to take this opportunity to make your voices heard. The village does have a website, and it's pretty great in the sense that you can just follow the little clicks and click on the various icons on there to get directed to the ICC websites to file and submit your comments. In the event that you're having difficulty navigating through the website from the ICC, the village is going to have staff available between certain hours, I think starting next week, correct, Joe? Yeah, starting next week, to assist any elderly or any folks that are just having a difficult time navigating through the ICC website to help submit that testimony on your behalf. So again, we all urge you to take this opportunity to make your voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Public safety officials? All right, and then it's me. I want to send a kudos to Candace, or I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, for getting all of that together today, all those presentations and those certificates. I know that was a lot, and tracking them all down and seeing who's going to be here, so thank you. That is what this should all be about. Community recognition should be recognizing our great young athletes or our young students and everything that they do, so I really appreciate that. Thank you for this petition that we received earlier about the BP pipeline. Joe, can you give us a little quick update on the BP pipeline that you had stated earlier?
I would defer to Engineer Westcott. He's been dealing with BP on this issue. I think he may have gotten some information within the last couple days regarding this.
Yeah, absolutely. So the representatives from BP Pipeline have reached out. They did recently perform a maintenance dig just south of 139th Street towards the northern limits of the village. We've tapped into them, the real estate folks, and I've asked for a copy of that report, so we're kind of aware of what's going on up there and the condition of the pipe. They are doing a depth of cover and pipe location survey throughout the village limits. We do have a post up on Facebook regarding the details of that. There's going to be crews that will be going along there right of way and pipeline easement, and they will be placing a thin red wire trailing behind them. Once they complete their survey, the wire will get picked up in a timely manner. It's non-invasive, so they're not going to be cutting down any trees or anything like that. You know, as an update, we don't have any permits from BP for any tree clearing whatsoever in the village. They're not permitted to do that. We have the northern long-eared bat season. Their mating season is starting at the end of the month here, and that goes until October. So there's really no tree removal that would be allowed in that time frame anyways. The only other update I would have is that next week, BP crews and myself will be walking that easement from 143rd Street up to the northern limits to remark the center line of the pipe and identify where the limits of their right-of-way are, just kind of as a refresher in that area, because I know that that's a hot topic, so.
Okay, we
That's where
received a
we're at.
petition. Did you get a copy of this?
I did not.
I will make sure that you receive it.
Excellent, thank you.
The second,
Can I add to that?
sure.
Myself, Supervisor Styland, and Village Engineer Westcott walked that approximately a year ago, a little over maybe. What we did see on walking that, and we walked, I don't know, 2 miles? Approximately 2 miles on that BP pipeline. We were in discussions at that time about clear cutting. They haven't come to us with any permitting, so nothing's being cut, as Village Engineer just stated. We also noticed that there's a lot of properties that are encroaching on the ingress-egress area. Well, the ingress-egress they have to have, but on the actual easement itself. There was trash back there. There was some stuff we had to climb over. So I think it's a lot of it is, there's some that is invasive, but there's some that looks like it's been there, some trees, some species that look like they've been there for 100 years. I did talk to Trustee Shell and bring him up to speed on that. So our objective is, of course, never to have any kind of clear cutting. And we made that clear to them the last time. So I think they're aware of that. And again, they haven't put in for any permits, so nothing's being cut.
Yeah, my fear with these circulating of these petitions is it makes it seem as if we are allowing it. So I think there should be, you know, I received this just before this board meeting, and I just want the residents to understand that there is no clear cutting. So for a petition to be signed, kind of gives the impression that there is. So I just want to make that very clear that there is none going on. So I guess we could talk a little bit later about why this petition was circulated. The other thing I wanted to ask you, Mr. Westcott, was Mr. McGee had stated earlier, yes? Oh, they're old, they're older. Okay, I see. Okay, makes sense. Got it. Thank you for pointing that out. The other thing I want to ask you is Mr. McGee had stated earlier about Long Run Creek and that they had not heard from the village, which I know personally we were on phone calls with attorneys and the case that was taking place on the Cook County side.
Yeah. Can
you give some update to that, and plus the steps you have taken to notify the residents that live along Long Run Creek about the beaver situation we had and cleaning it and taking care of it? I know all the work. I don't want the work that you've been doing to go unnoticed. So if you can give us a little update on what took place in the past and what you're currently doing and where we're going moving forward.
That's perfect, because I was going to do it during old business.
Yeah, absolutely. Trustee Mason and myself did attend several instances of, it was like court cases involving property owners that did some clearing and had structures that were encroaching into the floodplain north of our boundaries. On the Cook County side. So we worked with the Cook County Township, and they were able to get a majority of those structures removed. I believe the one case is still ongoing. It's just being dragged on and on and on and on. I will say we do have a Long Run Creek informational workshop scheduled for next meeting. So we'll be kind of posting some more information about that. That'll give property owners along Long Run Creek and some good information regarding the trees, blockages, what they can do, what the village is doing, you know. But just to reiterate on that, right, the village is limited to what we can do beyond our borders, right? We can inquire, we can ask about things. We can't stop certain things from happening. We have limited authority when it comes to that, right? Especially when it's into another county. So
as Mr. Westcott is again explaining, we sat on numerous litigation calls with Cook County. We did walk that property several times. Most of the infractions that transpired were on the Cook County side, not so much, even though there was some on our side too, where people were building things across the creek and things like that. But most of that transpired. There is an ongoing case still. There was motions and, I guess, final findings to remove the containers. I believe there were 5 of them that were out there that were impeding the water flow. That is a natural wetland. We had to work with the EPA as well. There was a lot of steps to this, and I can bring you up to speed on that too, Mr. Scheller. It's a natural habitat. You and I walked it, Madam Mayor. So I've walked that thing several times. And there was a fire too, a while back, a couple years ago. And there's a lot of fallen trees that are blocking the creek itself in certain areas. Water has a way of finding its way around. So the creek has changed course in a couple places. But you can't get equipment because even if you had the equipment to pick up some of these larger trees, you don't own the property and there is no easements to get to them. So, and that's a huge area, and I'd say 80% of it is on the Cook County side of it.
So this, what I was trying to get to is what we did in the past, like how, because this was a couple years ago that we were on these calls, or a year ago on the calls, and we're still in the process of keeping up with what's happening on the Cook County side. There's one still pending litigation that's going on. It seems like it's getting postponed every time we turn around. But moving forward, so the next meeting, we're having a Long Run Creek meeting to get the residents engaged, to talk about what we did do, what we can do, and what we're currently doing, correct? So it's kind of like an informative meeting to try to figure out what Long Run Creek residents want to do moving forward. So this is a collaborative effort, because I remember in the past when we did have, I think it was Homer Tree that went in there, there was this big controversy from other residents saying that they didn't want us in there. And there was in fact a board member that was really upset that we went in and spent money to help these residents. So we just want to have a strong unified front moving forward.
Yep, absolutely. In that workshop, we'll discuss all of those things, what the village can and can't do, what our authority is. As you know, Long Run Creek largely runs through private property, and there's restrictions on what we can and can't do on the private property. So we'll run through all of that. We'll run through, jurisdictional determinations, nationwide permits, floodplain. We'll run through all of that stuff, and that will be at the workshop next board meeting on March 25th.
Okay, so to answer the question, yes, we are supportive of this. Yes, we are in support of helping and figuring out ways and means of helping out the situation. We're in report, so I can't take comments from the audience right now, but we can touch base on it later on. If you're going to stay till the end of the meeting, we can suspend the rules then to talk about things more, if you so choose. Okay, so now we're going to move on to consent agenda. K1, consider for approval the accounts payable for the period of February 14th, 2026 through February 26th, 2026 in the amount of $693,893.30. 2, consider for approval the accounts payable for the period of February 27th, 2026 through March 12th, 2026 in the amount of $251,240.68. And 3, consider for approval the treasurer's report of cash and investments for period ending November 30th, 2025 in the amount of $53,074,388.69. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Lepore, Trustee Reinders. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Lepore.
Aye.
Trustee Reinders.
Aye.
Trustee Scheller.
Aye.
Trustee Mason.
Aye.
Trustee Muller.
Aye.
Trustee Holzhauser.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now is the workshop. We're going to move to M1, discussion regarding tax increment financing briefing. TIF.
Madam Mayor, I can introduce our speaker.
Sure.
And first I'm
Thank you.
Okay. So Michael Drusick is president and a partner with Klein, Thorpe, and Jenkins Limited with an office location in Westmont. Michael Drusick's practice is concentrated on counseling local government entities, including in the area of economic development matters. Mr. Drusick has served as a village attorney and a special counsel to a number of municipalities and as corporation counsel to various boards and authorities throughout Illinois. He's also a member of the Home Rule Attorneys Committee of the Illinois Municipal League. Michael Drusick was a presenter at the IML TIF seminar that I attended last fall. I'll let Mike tell you more about his background and literally turn the mic over to him now for the briefing on tax increment financing. And I think he's planning to spend maybe about 20 minutes with a briefing to leave plenty of time for questions and response back and forth with the board.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Mike Charusik, as Janie indicated, Kleinthorpe and Jenkins. I am the president managing partner. My background, kind of my focus has been for the last 30 plus years representing municipalities just like you, non-home rule communities, also home rule communities, dealing with a variety of things, but really a lot of economic development. Initiatives and opportunities. One thing I didn't bring with you, but I'll make sure Janie gets to you, is to supplement the TIF materials you have. Kleinthorpe and Jenkins, we author a book that's published by the Illinois Municipal League. It's called the Manual on Municipal Financing. It's a nice little pamphlet that covers soup to nuts municipal financing options for home rule and non-home rule communities. Very readable. TIF is in there along with a variety of other things like business districts, special service areas, special assessments. It's kind of your toolbox, so to speak, for financing municipal improvements and economic development initiatives. And so I'll make sure we get some copies over to you for that, and that would be kind of a nice supplement to the materials you have tonight. As Janie indicated, let's touch upon the PowerPoint. I'll hit the high points, roll through it relatively quickly, and then, Q&A afterwards, and I'm available to take, questions and stay as long as I need to. Let's see, get to page one. What is tax increment financing? I'm going to do kind of a high overview because I know some of you have a familiarity with TIF, maybe some less so. It's really a financing tool for municipalities to leverage public and private investment in designated areas that qualify for economic incentives under this act. The way I perceive it, because sometimes there is pro and con arguments about whether TIF's a good thing or not, I look at it as a financing tool that allows for the reimbursement of private investment or public investment in land, infrastructure, and economic development projects that enhance a community, whether it's your infrastructure, bringing it forward, bringing it current, right-sizing it or upsizing it for future development, or taking vacant land and doing something to put it in a queue to make it productive for redevelopment, or taking developed land and, maybe that land is a little long in the tooth, that those buildings are a little long in the tooth and they need to be demolished, rebuilt, renovated. That's what TIF does. It's a tool in the toolbox to tackle that kind of scope of development opportunities. The act itself, it's an Illinois act. It was adopted in 1977, and really the policy initiatives are these four bullet points: restore, revitalize economically depressed areas, areas that lack adequate infrastructure, stimulate private and public improvement, invest in declining and problematic areas, reimburse portions of an investment made in the community by a developer or a property owner, including the village, can be an investor in these types of initiatives and receive benefits through the TIF Act. Dedicate a funding source to finance redevelopment projects. The area proposed for a TIF must meet certain statutory eligibility criteria. There needs to be a redevelopment plan and eligibility report. You hire a consultant to prepare that document, and you basically identify an area in your community, a district, a proposed district. You hire a TIF consultant, not an attorney, but there's specialty folks that are like land planning, finance consultants that do this, and they work with somebody like me, a TIF attorney, and they put together the eligibility report, which is the first thing you look at. You take your district, you figure out whether you meet the criteria that the TIF Act lays out to become a TIF district. And then if that portion of the report, checks all the right boxes, then complementary to that TIF consultant will prepare a redevelopment plan. And that's almost like you're familiar with a comprehensive plan or your zoning plan. The TIF redevelopment plan is a projection like that. It's a document that says, okay, here's our TIF district, it meets these criteria, and here's what we want to see there. Here's our long-term, short-term vision for the district. Here are the things that need to be addressed. TIF district revenues. This is really property tax-based economic incentive tool. It comes really from rising property values. You invest in property that say, generate $100 of property tax a year. The goal is to make an investment in that to get it up to $120 a year. And that $20 of extra tax revenue, that's really the increment, the incremental value over your base, over your $100 base. That $20 gets put in a special bucket, a TIF bucket. The rest of the $100 every year that the TIF exists, that gets spent, not spent, but it gets redistributed to all the taxing bodies that would otherwise get that $100 every year. So the goal is to take basically a dollar amount, you freeze your tax revenue for a parcel or a district in a snapshot of time. That tax revenue every year goes back to all the taxing bodies. So the idea is nobody gets hurt. None of the tax districts take a step back. What they don't share in is the increment if property increases, and that increment that goes into that special TIF fund, that's a dedicated purpose fund. It can only be spent for furthering TIF activity and eligible costs. And then at the end of the TIF life, which typically when you create your first TIF, it's a 23-year period. You can have it shorter than that, but the statute says that's the first kind of approval life cycle of a TIF. For that 23 years, that increment and that tax kind of differential is frozen. All the taxing districts, including the village, only share in that $100 for that property for 23 years. Any increment above the $100, it could be $200, right? We could have $100 going to the taxing districts. That extra 100 that gets generated on that parcel gets put into the TIF fund, and that gets made available for economic incentives. That's the basic kind of back of the napkin financial kind of assessment of what a TIF is. With respect to TIF, in terms of source of revenue, reimbursement of costs, the financing mechanism for TIF is you're familiar with bonds. You can either have TIF revenue bonds, you can use general bonds and have them supported by TIF revenue, or you can have pay-as-you-go type program. And what that really means is with a TIF bond, it's just like one of your regular GO bonds or your alternate revenue bonds. The TIF district gets created, a financial assessment is done. There's going to be a certain amount of increment generated on a project. You can go to the market, you have bonds issued, that are supported, the debt service is supported by that increment. So that's one financing mechanism. A more common approach with a lot of communities, especially if you've never had TIF before, is to go not issue TIF bonds or debt. You really need a project that can support that. The more common kind of entry into this kind of economic incentive game is really to go as a pay-as-you-go program. And what that means is if you do ultimately create a TIF district and you have a project, for instance, I'm working on one where there's a downtown Western Springs. I've done a north side and a south side TIF that, because it's a train community bisected by the Burlington Northern. We did a south side TIF first because that area had more of economic development opportunity. The north side TIF less so. So we did the south side TIF, and we had an old grocery store next to a dry cleaner, contaminated site next to a grocery store. Both went out of business, both languished for 8 to 10 years. Nobody would touch it, too high property cost. It took a while for the developer, ultimate owner, to come forward with a project. But what we did is, through using economic incentive through TIF, we helped with basically the demo of those two buildings, the remediation of that property, the dry cleaner, with economic incentive through TIF. The developer built a $20+ million condo over commercial project, and it was a pay-as-you-go project. The village agreed to reimburse that developer 10% of his investment. So roughly a $2.2 million economic incentive, pay-as-you-go. What does that mean? For about a 15-year period, the developer is getting paid on an annual basis based on the increment that that new building that came out of the ground is generating. So all the increment that that building is creating, it's creating about $350,000, $380,000 a year. The village is sharing in that increment by giving the developer 70% of it. The village keeps 30% to reinvest back into the TIF district. But that project, that building, the increment, the extra value that it's creating in property taxes is being used on a pay-as-you-go. So it's being used, each year we get a tax bill, each year that increment comes in, we take 70% of it that's generated by that building alone, pay it to the developer to pay down his $2.2 million economic incentive. 30% goes back to the village's TIF fund to further enhance economic development through the South TIF district. And that's kind of pay as you go. It's performance-based. That's one of the things that I know, some of the people who are concerned about TIF is how do you make sure the village doesn't get burned by TIF? Well, when these projects are pay as you go like this, if the project doesn't generate extra tax increment revenue, the way these economic incentive agreements work is it's all performance-based. They exist for 15 years. If you hit a home run and it generates more increment than anticipated, that $2.2 million will be paid back at a quicker pace, and maybe it gets paid back in 10, 12, 13 years. Maybe the building doesn't do as well, right? Under that scenario, maybe the developer only gets paid back $1.8 million because over that 15-year life, the building didn't appraise out and didn't assess out as much. So that's, again, kind of a quick snapshot of how does TIF work as a pay-as-you-go project. To me, that's a real good example of how something gets financed. We didn't issue a bond, we didn't help with the financing to get the building out of the ground, but what we did is we helped with a reimbursement of an investment that a property owner made and took a blighted corner, a corner that was an eyesore, and now it's one of the marquee corners that's helping drive the renovation and kind of the redevelopment of that little community. So just a quick kind of hands-on approach, practical approach to how TIF can work in terms of financing. And when we talk about necessary to fund a gap in project financing or this but-for test, that's exactly ties back to this analysis. This developer really needed a little bit of help to make that grocery store dry cleaner site work, right? The investment of over $20 million in the site was a lot at the time, and there was risk, and so they ran a pro forma. They did a business plan that said, hey, we're willing to invest this much money, but we need a certain rate of return, and we don't know if we can get it. But for some type of economic incentive to help ensure we get some type of rate of return, we're not going to touch the property, and it would continue to lag and languish in an eyesore condition. And so, that's how, when you deal with economic incentives like this, it's just not handing out money here and there. When you do create a TIF district, there's a framework for assessing projects, there's a framework for how you structure economic development transactions, so it's a win-win for the property owner, which is a win-win for the community, which, hopefully if, again, property appraises out, it generates more tax revenue. And at the end of the 23-year period, the neat thing about TIF when we talk about increment is the goal is to get to our next page, which is this little colored chart. The goal is to get to the green area. When you create a TIF, you're on the far left side of the chart. You really have, you start at ground zero, you draw your map around property, you get basically an overall EAV, an overall assessment of how much the land is worth in that district. Could be made up of taxable property mostly. It can have some non-taxable parcels, municipal parcels, church parcels, other tax-exempt parcels. That's not uncommon. But overall, you want to focus on tax-producing properties that over time, after you create the TIF and you freeze your base, you want to make improvements to the land in that TIF to drive up EAV, to drive up property taxes, because you've made improvements to those parcels. And then when the TIF expires, in 23 years or at some earlier point, if all of the TIF plan objectives are satisfied, you can close down a TIF earlier than 23 years. But for just, conversation's sake, after the 23-year period, the goal really is to be at the high kind of right-hand side of the chart, which is, that overall TIF district might have been generating, let's just say, $1 million to all the taxing bodies day one. The goal is to have it generating $6 million of tax revenue 23 years later, and then all the taxing districts are sharing, not in just the $1 million revenue that might have creeped up incrementally with marginal improvements to the land, but you go from the $1 million of tax revenue share to, say, a $6 million tax revenue share, with lots of those parcels benefiting incrementally, due to economic redevelopment. And then the halo effect, some properties may not get developed, but other properties may really drive development in your TIF district, and then there's sort of a halo effect. It brings more development, it brings more renovation. Let's hit our next little slide here. What is the village looking at to attract with TIF? Well, you got to look at your comprehensive plan, your zoning code, strategic planning. All of that type of assessment and analysis goes in when you're talking about creating a TIF district. Part of dealing with the TIF consultant will be to look at the eligibility study and the TIF plan. And then it's a good idea to talk about, are there other complementary economic incentive programs that you can add to the TIF district, like a business district, which you may or may not have business districts now, but if you don't, that's another thing you can sort of layer on to a TIF district, and it helps you provide certain economic incentives and marketing opportunities and business driving opportunities. LaGrange Park, it's a non-home rule community like you, I work with them. We have 2 TIF districts in that town. We have 4 business districts, and there's overlap between those districts, and they use the revenue from their TIF district and their business district complementary because some of the business district funds can cover certain things that TIF district funds don't cover. So they sort of taken a layered approach. We've done that over there. And again, it's more tools in the toolbox to address economic development or reinvestment, opportunities in certain parts of your community. TIF district objectives. We touched upon, I think, most of these: improve, restore existing buildings, promote new commercial development, revitalize vacant or underused land, upgrade public infrastructure. You can do all sorts of public infrastructure work with TIF dollars, as long as you're going to have increment to help pay you back. So you can't just put water and sewer and main to nowhere. There's got to be an end goal to putting in your infrastructure. Build it and then they will come kind of thing doesn't work real well. You need to make sure that they're going to come, and so that's the important thing about doing economic incentive agreements and redevelopment agreements with property owners. With TIF incentives, they need to build something to make sure there's property values that create increment to pay back whatever economic incentives are part of the deal. And so like infrastructure, you can build out water, electric, any type of infrastructure that's necessary to, help a development get off the ground, but there's got to be a game plan for getting that second phase of the project off the ground to create the increment to pay for the infrastructure. Touch upon real quick here the TIF eligibility criteria. We talked about the but-for test. With TIF, you're really talking blight. That's something that I think, very common kind of phrase. You're addressing visual blight. You can see it. It's kind of the cracked window theory. If it's the little things that can lead to bigger issues. It's code compliance issues. It's public health, welfare, and safety. It's lack of infrastructure or aging infrastructure that need to be upgraded to promote, new development or renovation. There's also you can have a blight TIF. You can also have a TIF that's designated as a conservation TIF, which it's more subjective. I call it blight light, but it's you have some blight in this area. maybe the buildings are a little run down, they're not, vacant in need of demolition, but you're, again, the cracked window theory, you're on the path to blight, and it's just, certain parts of your community or certain property may need a facelift instead of a full makeover, and it's like, you can qualify under either a blighted TIF or a conservation TIF, or it can be a mix of both. And I'll just keep it high level there. The TIF consultant will go through, when you do your TIF plan, they'll do a total land assessment and building assessment, and they'll identify the criteria and the menu of items, the boxes to check that will say, okay, yeah, we're good to call it a blighted TIF, we're good to call it a conservation TIF, and that would be the path forward that we would proceed on in terms of meeting the legal definitions and criteria for the particular district. And just to give you an idea of some of the menus real quick of the items, if to find a blighted TIF, buildings and structures, they need to be dilapidated, obsolescence, deterioration, minimum code standards not met, illegal uses, excessive vacancy, inadequate utilities, poor land planning. That's not a negative on your land planner or you as a board, but you could have a lot of irregular shaped lots. I have communities that were platted, 100+ years ago, and they just don't work in today's world with what people want to see with that real current trend of economic development. So irregular shaped lots, platting that doesn't work, lack of community planning. Maybe your planning, zoning map is outdated, your comp plan is a little outdated and needs a refresh. These are all things that you can rely on. Economic, environmental remediation costs are a big one. And also just underperforming or lagging EAV. If these properties really are lagging, that can be a real signal that you have one of the eligibility criteria, you're able to check that box. You can have vacant land. If you're looking at TIFing vacant land, there's a list of 6 criteria there, some of the same we just talked about. Conservation TIF, same kind of thing. A lot of the same criteria, but one of the big things with a conservation TIF is that the area includes at least 50% or more of the structures have at least 35 years or old. So, that part of the act is really it drives towards manufacturing, industrial, commercial areas where you have really aging infrastructure, aging buildings, and you're looking to have a refresh there. One of the things I know where you have a lot of farm and ag land around, so that's something to keep in mind. The next little slide talks about if land has been used for commercial agriculture within the last 5 years, generally cannot be classified as vacant for purposes established in a new TIF. One of the things, that's not an impediment to getting a TIF off the ground. It's just a recognition that you got to look at the menu of options, and you may have to check some other boxes. You may also have landowners here that farm land, but they're really land banking land for future development or redevelopment. And, we can get at that issue by using a redevelopment agreement to unlock farming land if that farming land is really more valuable to be used for some other type of what the zoning folks would call a higher higher zoning purpose. Timing, establishing a TIF. There's a bunch of steps within the TIF statute. It generally takes 5 to 7 months to go through a TIF process. It starts with approving a TIF consultant, then you jump into publishing an ordinance and a notice in the newspaper that's called the Interested Parties Registry. When you create a TIF, you have to create this registration that allows any corporation, entity, or person to participate in the process. And so there's a formal newspaper notice and a registry that the clerk or the village attorney keeps. And those are folks that get notice of the process and the different meetings from time to time. After that, you approve an ordinance that sets a public hearing in front of the board, and that also sets a public meeting in front of a board that's called the Joint Review Board. It's a specialty board. If you don't have a TIF, you don't have one. So if you do go down the path of creating a TIF, you'll be creating a joint board of review during the process. It's made up of 8 to 9 members of the various taxing entities that have that have the ability to levy a tax inside your TIF district. So it's typically community college, schools. If you got libraries, park districts, it's basically your big taxing bodies. They all have a representative. Village has a representative. There's also a public member that can be appointed by the village, and that kind of rounds out the group. That entity actually exists for the whole life of the TIF, the JRB we call it, the Joint Review Board. The JRB members get together for a couple reasons. The first is to help vet the formation of a TIF. They ultimately do a recommendation when they meet, either for or against the TIF. If they recommend negative, it doesn't kill the TIF. All it does is push the initiative back to this board, and they have to approve it by a 3/5 vote. You got to approve it by a supermajority vote. So the JRB is always a recommending body, never final action or any authority to pull a TIF off the table. The other thing the TIF does the JRB does every year is there's annual audit requirements. So you have to do an annual audit of the TIF fund. The JRB gets together by state law every year to review the annual TIF audit and then just to give a report back to the village board of its findings. Timing. When do you start a TIF? Best practice is really wait till there's development on the horizon. Wait till you have real strong interest from a developer to have a TIF district put in place to help with the redevelopment or the economic incentives for redeveloping a portion of land, because there is a 23-year term, but inside that 23-year term, there's also what I call the 7-year shot clock. So you don't want to start a TIF unless you got something viable, because your 23-year clock starts ticking, right? And then it takes a while for a developer to get its zoning entitlements done, and then it takes a while for them to get building, and then it takes a while for your assessor to capture the improved enhancements to the property. What does that leave us? Less runway to repay them, right, an economic incentive, and also less runway for that property to build up increment, which can be used to further fund other economic incentives. So that's one kind of caveat to you kind of wait to do this when you're ripe. The second reason is the 7-year shot clock. You don't start a TIF unless you really have something, because if you don't get something going in the first 7 years of the life of a TIF, by state law, you got to terminate the TIF. And I worked with a community about 5 years ago, and they had a TIF district. They thought they had a deal. They thought they had a condo over commercial, project, about $60 million next to the train station. The developer couldn't get the whole tower of financing put in place, and they kept kicking the can, and I kept telling the community, the manager and the mayor, I'm like, pave a street, build some sidewalk, because the 7-year shot clock is when you start a TIF, you have to do one of two things. You have to either sign a redevelopment agreement, don't have to follow through on it, you just have to sign an RDA, or you have to spend some money on some public improvement inside your TIF. And with this particular community, and it was a split board at the time, there wasn't the appetite to do a public improvement project, and they were futzing around with trying to get the RDA put together, and there was a split board, and it's just kind of like, we got to, honestly, 6 years and like 11 months. And we approved an RDA at the 11th hour. Go back 2-3 meetings prior to that, it was approved over 2 mayoral vetoes. So it was quite a procedural roller coaster ride. But ultimately, we got a RDA done within the 7-year shot clock, and that project actually did not get built. And now 2 years later, the developer has bought the project, and now we're basically either going to extend the TIF or do a new TIF to actually make this project work. So I've been at it for about 5-6 years with this community, and it just goes to show you it's way better to have, bird in the hand is better than 2 in the basket. TIF is great, but you got to make sure you're ready for it, and the developer, project owners are ready for it, or you get something started that, you know, you're sort of waiting on the come for something to happen, and it's not the best kind of place to be. Let's see, we talked about pay-as-you-go, developer notes, incentive programs. You know, if you have TIF, I don't know if you have a facade improvement program, but, you know, TIFs can be helpful if you have business corridors, existing business corridors, and you want to fund facade improvement programs or business improvement programs. It's a great way to fund those. As I said, we can, you know, you can issue bonds. You can pair them with business districts, special service areas. The nice thing about TIF, there's a whole menu of eligible redevelopment costs that can be paid. How do you pay to get a TIF off the ground? There's attorney costs, there's land planning costs, there's engineering costs. Well, there's a lot of soft costs that are TIF eligible. So professional fees, studies, marketing, financial planning, financing of developer costs, the financing of bonds, administrative costs. You can actually take, you know, an employee who works on TIF matters, and there is a, you know, your manager is typically the TIF administrator, and economic development director typically works on TIF matters. You can actually reimburse the general fund for the portion of their salary and benefits that are expended on TIF projects. So if they work 20% of their time on a TIF project, you can allocate that to TIF funds, and that can help you with your general fund financing and your budgetary. Other TIF eligible expenses are hard costs. You can reimburse a developer for property assembly, acquisition, site prep, demolition, environmental costs, public costs, street, sewer, sanitation, stormwater. Stormwater is a real big, I heard stormwater issues here tonight. I work with a lot of communities on stormwater projects where TIF is instrumental in closing the gap on, you know, state, you know, funding, or just straight up, you know, municipal funding of particular projects. There also, you can use TIF funding for certain housing. And you can also, there is a, you know, just for, you know, transparency, you can use for, if you want to sell a municipal building and land to a development for private development, there is a exception in the TIF Act that allows you to basically do a flip, and you can build a new municipal replacement facility if you sell your existing facility for redevelopment purposes. So that's an opportunity that is not always easy to use given the situation, but it's there if, you know, you're thinking about planning and you're thinking about, you have old, not only just aging infrastructure, but maybe an old, you know, public works building. There's a rule on public works buildings that's a little tighter in the TIF Act, but, you know, if you sold Village Hall, if you sold the fire station, you sold the police station, you can actually build a new one and use TIF financing as long as you sold, you know, you sold the, you know, the old facility for economic development purposes. How do the documents work? We use redevelopment agreements and economic incentives, so I'm sure you're familiar with those as part of your current, you know, economic activity. So it's the same type of documents. They just, you know, talk about tax increment financing. We also use something called an inducement resolution that may or may not be familiar, but that concept is if you have a developer that wants to negotiate and invest in a property, and you're not quite to an RDA, a redevelopment agreement or economic incentive agreement yet, a lot of communities, we draft inducement resolutions, which is a promise to pay if something happens down the road. But what it does is it identifies this developer, development, and the expenditure of funds as being qualified for TIF reimbursement if the developer moves forward with the project. It's like a pre-development agreement, and it locks in, for instance, a developer that may not want to put, let's just say, 50 grand into preliminary building plans, you know, architectural plans, engineering plans, to come before you with a development. They may be resistant to spend that kind of money to ramp up and give you a really solid concept plan and some preliminary building plans. I do inducement resolutions all the time, which is, hey, we'll pay you either the $50,000 or we'll pay you 40% of that, 50% of that, 60%. We'll have skin in the game, you have skin in the game. You bring those plans forward, whether the project goes forward or not, we're gonna do our best effort to have you come forward with a concept plan that the village board is supportive of and that we can get behind and may lead to a redevelopment agreement and ultimately a TIF project that will have some type of reinvestment using TIF funds. We talked about this. Your TIF will be part of your annual budget. There'll be a little component of that. And then really next steps to explore policy alignment. We talked about hiring a TIF consultant. You work with an attorney. We've covered all of that. Establishing policies and procedures for qualifying preliminary application process, finding opportunities, but for obstacles. That's really it. I tried to keep it high level. I tried to give you some illustrative examples so it's not so dry and so it's not so, to me it helps talking about projects that I worked on and things, you can look Western Springs, you can look at the Village of Lisle, you can look at LaGrange Park, Lombard, there's a bunch of communities that we represent, Schaumburg, Vernon Hills, Wheeling. We do a lot of TIF and economic development work, and so I try to give you a little touchback to actual projects to sort of illustrate. So if you do have questions, if you want to touch upon anything, you want to circle back, let me know.
Is there questions so far from anybody, any other trustees?
Couple.
Sure.
Yes, sir, and thank you for coming tonight. Did you work in on the Yorkville TIF district?
Yorkville, we do not represent Yorkville.
Okay, because I guess one of my questions would be, what are the negativities? And I think you're kind of alluding to some of them, but the best practices start with strategic planning and annexation of property first, because there's a lot of property in between that we are not in the village or is in township.
I think that was just a sample, though. That wasn't the area we were looking at. That was a sample.
Yeah, yes, you have to have the property in your community.
In your jurisdiction.
Yeah, and that's where like annexation goes hand in glove with TIF. To actually create a TIF district, property's got to be within your corporate boundaries.
So pretty much right now from Cedar Road, because otherwise it's too chopped up, from Cedar Road going east is what's within the village on 159th, if that.
Yeah, but I think what he's saying is that an incentive would be annex in.
Correct.
And you can be part of the TIF.
Yeah, you can use annexation agreements to bring property into the community with,
which I like, but if it happens after the fact, and you create a TIF district, and we say this is it, and that property is not within the TIF district, we have to go through the process again, which costs us again.
100%. That's why you got to get your ducks lined up.
I just wanted to make sure
Yeah,
and I wanted to make sure I was clear on that, because one of the things we want to do is avoid creating an unproductive district, right?
Correct.
Or something that we have to pay for twice. The initial maximum term of a TIF district is 23 years. Is there also other increments such as 10-year, 15-year? And I did hear your explanation on why they stretch it out sometimes, because it takes forever to get things off the ground. It seems like in a couple of the cases you had presented. Is that correct, or is there?
Yeah, the statute says you can create an initial TIF up to 23 years, and then it also says with the
up to
maximum.
Maximum for the first kind of approval, you can go up to 23 years. So you can create an 18-year TIF if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Most communities do 23 years because it takes a little time for them to get off the ground. Statute also says if 23 years isn't enough, you can actually extend the TIF multiple 12-year increments. So you can go to 35, and now the legislature is actually recognizing extending beyond 35. But it's very common for TIFs that get created for 23 years to get extended for another 12 years, and that's the state legislature will approve that for you as long as your taxing districts, those folks on the Joint Board of Review, plus anybody else that has the authority to levy taxes, so there might be, say, a water commission or somebody that's not a JRB member, but actually is a taxing entity, if there's 10 taxing entities in your district, you got to get 10 letters of support. Then you work with your state legislators, and then that Springfield almost always grants. I'm not aware of them ever denying a TIF extension for a 12-year extension if the letters of support exist from all the taxing bodies and they're all supportive of the extension.
And on that extension, then you would go through the whole process again then, wouldn't we?
When you do an extension, it's a major amendment, so you have to go through a JRB meeting, a public hearing. It's truncated from the standpoint of as long as you're not changing the boundaries and as long as the TIF plan is still viable, you really are just extending that TIF plan for another 12-year period. But what typically happens is if everything else stays the same in the TIF, if you do extend a TIF, the life of a TIF district from 23 to 35 years, an extra 12 years, you almost always increase the budget. You adjust the budget because projects have happened, and typically the projections that are now 23 plus years old, right, 20 years old, that TIF, you typically extend the life of a TIF sort of in the last 3 to 5 years. That's usually what happens. Those projections are a little dated, so what you do is you freshen up that budget, and so for the new extension, that TIF plan will typically have some minor modifications, the TIF budget being typically the one that is always amended to adjust to current dollars.
Thank you. I'm Trustee Mason, by the way. I'm
Nice to
sorry
meet
to
you.
tell you that. I'm also Chair of the Public Service and Safety, and I had talked to our committee about the Joint Review Board, and you had brought that up. The schools, library, fire, people like this also have a say in it. And I just want to make sure I'm clear, if they were against it at that point, it would come back in front of this board, and you would need a three-fifths majority. Just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. What would you say the average costing of a village for a TIF district is?
What do you mean?
The average costing for us to implement?
You know, it depends. You know, you got an attorney fee and you have a TIF consultant fee, and it really just depends on
engineering.
Well, there's some staff costs, but you know, the process to create a TIF, I mean, it can be $25,000 to $60,000 of professional fees to create a TIF. Just depends on how big the TIF is, how much the TIF consultant has to study to get its eligibility report and its TIF plan in place. You know, is it a contested process? I've had some TIFs where there's multiple joint board of review meetings because it takes a while for everybody to get on either on the same page or not on the same page, and then the JRB can make a recommendation that's either favorable, neutral, or negative. So, you know, sometimes there's extended, you know, cost just in the amount of time and the number of meetings that you have to participate.
And how long it takes to transpire, right?
Yeah, but roughly you can count on, you know, costs of probably just, you know, I would say, you know, $50,000, $60,000 it would be, you know, don't hold me to that, but the reality is you're probably between two consultants, you're spending that kind of money to get a TIF off the ground, and that's all eligible to be reimbursed by the TIF. So, you know, once it does create increment, those are all costs that the village can pay itself back with. So you typically pay that out of general fund, and then you reimburse yourself as the increment comes. As I mentioned, you know, when you do a redevelopment agreement, sometimes redevelopment agreements, the developer wants all their money up front loaded, they get 100%. Most of the time, you know, I say you got to split it. You got to do 90-10, 80-20, 70-30. So the village, for every new development that happens, its share of the increment on any project that comes along, it's getting something, the new revenue that's generated by that new project, and that helps fund the village's side of its TIF administration and operations.
My final question, earlier you had made a statement, sometimes it's not the best place to be. What happens if a TIF district doesn't develop or transpire the way you want it to? What are the negatives of that?
You know, I don't know that there are negatives in terms of, you know, it's not an extra tax, so it's not hurting like the taxpayer in any way. It's, are the other taxing bodies foregoing some tax increment? Yes. But if development doesn't happen within the TIF district, they're not really foregoing much because there's not going to be much increment generated. I look at it as another tool in the toolbox, and if it doesn't ultimately bring development to that district, then that's why the 7-year rule, the shot clock, exists in the act. It's to shut down a TIF that ultimately doesn't have legs to thrive. That 7-year shot clock is there to basically say, okay, you've had 7 years, you haven't invested any TIF increment in public infrastructure, and you don't have a redevelopment agreement. Okay, it's time to shut it down, and maybe that opportunity just didn't materialize.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I think the last thing that I wanted to ask was as far as water. You had mentioned public infrastructure to support growth. What about water, wastewater, things like that? Mains, water mains?
Yeah, water mains, lines, absolutely. That's all public infrastructure that can be either built with or supported or planned, depending on your, TIF may not be the best funding mechanism for certain portions of, certain utilities. You might be able to get cheaper money from, say, the Illinois, IPA through their water program. But maybe TIF, can supplement a project like that to deal with engineering costs and planning costs. And so TIF can sometimes be a funding mechanism to help infrastructure get put in the ground, pay for parts, pay for labor, get the pipe in the ground. Sometimes maybe it's, TIF is you have other funding sources that are more efficient or economically viable for the village, but you can use TIF to pay for the engineering or pay for the design plan, which again are eligible professional expenses. So it's another tool in the toolbox.
Thank you very much. That's all I have. Thank you.
I've got one question. Maybe you explained it, but maybe I missed it. If you create a district and there's already an existing business within that district, what happens?
Nothing. They have an opportunity if you create a business improvement program, a facade improvement program, a TIF program. They have an opportunity. If that business needs a fresh face, if that business needs signage, facade, needs to be renovated, interior renovation, that there's an opportunity for that building to do something with its current facade, its current interior, that would allow it to maybe be more viable in the marketplace. So it's it doesn't hurt the business. It's not going to change the taxes it pays.
That's what I was getting at. Okay.
It's going to continue to pay the same taxes.
Okay.
It's the back of the envelope where the taxes get separated between what goes to all the taxing bodies and what goes into the TIF fund. So it doesn't hurt the business owner from that standpoint. If the business owner invests in its property, spends 50 grand in upgrading its property, and let's say it's a 50-50 program, they spend 50 and they get $25,000 TIF incentive through a business improvement program.
Okay, so they would fall within the TIF, okay.
Yeah, they'd be able to participate in that,
Okay.
but if they do invest in their property, right, and they do get TIF money to help with that, defray the cost of that investment, the property taxes will go up reflective of the investment they made. And so it's, that exists with everybody in a TIF district. If you invest in your property, your taxes are going to go up based on your investment, just like they would if you were outside of a TIF district and you made major improvements to your commercial or residential or industrial building.
Okay, that was
the tax man is always going to get you in that regard.
Okay, that's all I had. Anybody else have any questions? Mike, Trustee LaFleur.
No worries. Question for you. Regarding the eligibility on the vacant land, under a lot of vacant land in this area, under the one-factor test, one of the qualifications is it suffers from chronic flooding. Is there a definition for chronic, and who makes that determination?
Engineering and the TIF consultant would do a number of studies and take whatever public records they can, whether it's hydraulic studies, whether it's history, past practices. They'd look at flood maps. They'd look at water course maps, where drainage maps.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be definitely a engineering slash,
So it'd be a village engineer, or be a third-party engineer, or?
whoever you wanted to hire. If your village engineer is qualified in that regard, they can do it. If not, if you hired a engineering consultant, again, that would be a TIF eligible expense.
Thank you.
Okay. Nobody has any more questions? Nope, we're good?
Mike did it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sure.
Quick question, or maybe just clarification.
Yeah.
It's my understanding that, within that TIF district, you could still layer an SSA or some other sort of special taxing district to allow for first responders or things of that nature that may be necessary to help when that development grows, correct?
100%. Yep, and SSA, special service areas, are a great example to, you do a TIF district, I think I mentioned you could do a business district, you can overlay those, I have those in LaGrange Park. We've done a lot of work in Orland over years, we have TIF districts there with SSAs, especially for residential developments that have stormwater drainage needs, and you have what's called a dormant special service area to make sure that the drainage ponds and the drainage work in subdivisions. So that's a common technique, separate from TIF SSAs, but you can certainly layer an SSA over and incorporate it into a TIF district if that makes sense, and if you're trying to, have that, extra, hand in that type of project. Sure.
Great.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much for the presentation. It's greatly
Thank you.
appreciated. I'm sure we all learned a lot.
Good question.
All right, does that conclude our workshop? Okey-dokey. All right, we're going to now move on to legislation and action items. We're going to move on to L1, consider for approval an ordinance granting a variance to increase the maximum permitted gross width of a circular driveway from 28 feet to 46 feet in accordance with the reviewed plans, public testimony, and findings of fact for certain real property located in the R2 Single Family Residential District at 18032 South Virginia Lane, Moquina, Illinois, case number HG 2603-B. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Mason, is there a second? Trustee Reinders. Trustee Mason, do you have anything?
I do. The Plan Commission voted on 5-0. This has been going back since 2022. I read through this. I'm not sure what contractor you hired. Obviously, the roofing was no good. The electrical was no good. They came back. You fired both of those guys. The general contractor started, stopped, it looks like. Plumbing contractor, you changed him. It was never in, am I saying this correctly, Ayed? Mr. Ayed?
Is this you? Is this your, you could come up to the microphone if you would like.
We were never under the impression that, well, first of all, you weren't under the impression that the builder had received, you were under the impression that the builder did receive permits.
Yes.
I know you're working with the state's attorney right now and your own attorney to recoup your costs, I guess, that you had lost for putting in additional plantings and whatnot. I believe our inspectors went out there. I think it was Tom that had gone out there, took a look at the property from what I read, see that you put in a secondary driveway. I'm not opposed to you doing what you need to do on your own land. The only thing that I would say at this time is that if everybody does that, we're going to have a mix mosh going on, because we do have ordinances that are in place, and they're in place for a reason. So I would say at this time, I'm for it, provided you pay the permit fees for the additional driveway that was never brought to the attention of the village.
Trustee Reinders.
Also, I actually drove past this and took a look at everything, and for the size of the house and the size of the driveway, it doesn't look like it's too big for the house, because the house is a very nice size. So all I could say is I agree with Trustee Mason that, in the event that you're going to do any other work on the house, that you make sure that you get a permit.
Yes.
I think he's learned that lesson, right?
Yeah. It wasn't me, it was my
Right.
But other than that, I don't have any problem with this.
Trustee Muller.
No, I have no issues with it. It's
Trustee Shaler.
No issues.
Trustee Holzhauser.
No objection.
Trustee Lepore.
I have no issues, ma'am.
Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee Mason.
Are we paying the permit fees?
The motion is consider for approval an ordinance granting a variance to increase the maximum permitted growth It doesn't say anything about the fee, so if you want to,
I would like to make an amendment to state that the permit fees will, for the rounded driveway, be added, and then I am a yay, or an
so you're
aye.
making an amendment to the motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on the amendment to the motion?
No.
All in favor to the amendment on the motion? Aye. Opposed? Okay, now we're back to the amendment, to the motion as amended.
Correct.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Mason.
Aye.
Trustee Reinders.
Aye.
Trustee Lepore.
Aye.
Trustee Muller. Trustee Holzhauser.
Aye.
Trustee Schaller.
Aye.
Motion carries. You understood what we just did there, right? So basically, you're granted the variance, you just have to pay the fees.
Okay.
All right?
The permit fee initially, was that the variance that I paid, like the application initially?
The
I
application,
paid something, I don't know, I paid like something for $500 and something dollars.
That was the variance application.
Oh, okay,
for the variance, you just have to pay the permit fees for the driveway,
got it.
okay?
When-
And what were those fees, do we know?
I don't, I'm looking through the report, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that, Mayor.
Okay, here's what you can do. You can meet up with Joe Baber, the village manager, and Chris Gruba, and they can talk to you about the fees.
Okay.
Okay? Oh, and the attorney has something.
And then make sure you get that back with your lawyer and the Attorney General.
I'm trying.
Do your best. Thank you, young man.
Is that it?
Thank you.
Go ahead, and the attorney just,
Maybe their business cards or?
yeah, the attorney has something to add.
Yeah, so the vote today was a conditional variance, just so that you know. It's expressly conditioned upon you paying the applicable permit fees for that circular drive. And that fee money is going to be assessed and determined by the village staff and the village manager's office, okay?
Okay, got it, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now moving on to L2, consider for approval an ordinance requesting an extension of ordinance 25-019 that granted 1, a preliminary plat of subdivision, 2, a map amendment from the C2 local business to R6A attached single-family residential district, 3, a special use for a planned unit development with certain exceptions, and 4, a preliminary plan, site improvement plan for certain real property located at the southeast and southwest corners of Hidden Valley Trail and 159th Street, Homer Glen, Illinois, commonly known as the Villas of Hidden Valley, applicable only to Phase 2, PIN number 1605-23-200-025-0000 with certain exceptions and conditions. Case HG 2423-A PUD. And it says with conditions.
That was the original, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
That was the original PUD. So
All this is doing is granting them an extension to submit their final permit plat, or sorry, to submit their final plat in addition to their final project plan.
I just
That's
didn't
all
know if
this
I had
is.
to read the conditions
Oh,
that were listed, because they're not on here, but I don't have
No.
to. Okay,
But
this is just
It's
an
an
extension of.
This is just an
Got it.
extension.
It's just an extension to submit a plat and to submit the, their development.
Easy peasy.
For
All
that
right.
phase.
Is
I'll
there a
make that
motion?
motion.
Trustee Reinders?
I'll second.
Trustee Lepore, any discussion?
No, Mayor, because this is basically on Phase 2 is basically what they're asking for the extension, and they're going to be coming before us, I think that it said here either April 8th or 22nd for Phase 1, for the final for Phase 1. So I have no problem with it.
Trustee Lepore?
No issues, ma'am.
Any other trustees? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Reinders.
Aye.
Trustee Lepore.
Aye.
Trustee Muller.
Aye.
Trustee Holzhauser.
Aye.
Trustee Schaller.
Aye.
Trustee Mason.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 3, consider for approval an ordinance adopting the official 2026 zoning map of the Village of Homer Glen. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Mason?
I'll second it.
Trustee Holzhauser? Trustee Mason?
I don't have any issues with it. It's actually done very well, and I think I'll hang on to a copy.
Trustee Holzhauser?
No objections to the map.
Any other trustees have any comments? Madam
No
Clerk,
issues.
please call the roll.
Trustee Mason.
Aye.
Trustee Holzhauser.
Aye.
Trustee Schaller.
Aye.
Trustee Muller.
Aye.
Trustee Reinders.
Aye.
Trustee Lepore.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 4, consider for approval to approve a proposal for geotechnical services for Heritage Park Phase 2 expansion with construction testing services of Illinois in the amount of $5,750. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Reinders, is there a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Muller? Trustee Reinders, do you have anything?
Basically, this is just, they are going to be doing the soil testing for foundations and things like that, engineering. It's the final phase of engineering. So I have no problem with that.
Trustee Muller?
Nope, I have no issues, needs to be
Any other
done.
trustees? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee
Sorry, I didn't mean to
Reinders?
cut you off.
Aye.
Trustee Muller? Trustee Schaller?
Aye.
Trustee Mason?
Aye.
Trustee Lepore?
Aye.
Trustee Holzhauser?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 5, consider for approval an ordinance accepting and approving a plot of easement, granting an easement for sanitary sewer and a temporary construction easement to the Village of Homer Glen. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Mason?
I'll second it.
Trustee Holzhauser? Trustee Mason?
Pretty boilerplate.
Trustee Holzhauser?
Nope, this is an essential step towards the next phase, so we need to
Trustee
do it.
Lepore?
No issues.
Trustee Muller? Trustee Schaller?
No issues.
Trustee Reinders?
No issues.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Mason?
Aye.
Trustee Holzhauser?
Aye.
Trustee Schaller?
Aye.
Trustee Reinders?
Aye.
Trustee Lepore?
Aye.
Trustee Muller?
Motion carries. Number 6, consider for approval an ordinance approving a final plot for Stonebridge Lot 80 re-subdivision. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Mason?
I'll second.
Trustee Lepore? Trustee Mason?
Nope, I discussed this with Director Westcott. We went over it. It's been trying to get this done for quite some time. They're just basically trying to take it out of one HOA, and the person that bought the property is trying to combine it in another one, all in one deal.
Trustee Lepore?
I concur with Trustee Mason, no issues.
Any other trustees? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Mason?
Aye.
Trustee Lepore?
Aye.
Trustee Holzhauser?
Aye.
Trustee Muller? Trustee Reinders?
Aye.
Trustee Schaller?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 7, consider for approval resolution number 26-007 concerning the waiver of surety bonds for construction on state highways.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Mason?
Second.
Trustee Schaller? Trustee Mason?
Again, standard boilerplate. It's a request to the Illinois Department of Transportation in lieu of a surety bond. I don't see why we wouldn't do it.
Trustee Schaller?
I have nothing to add.
Any other trustees? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Mason?
Aye.
Trustee Schaller?
Aye.
Trustee Reinders?
Aye.
Trustee Lepore?
Aye.
Trustee Muller?
Aye.
Trustee Holzhauser?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 8, consider for approval an ordinance amending the provisions of Chapter 138, Article 1, Section 5, Environmental Conservation and Tree Preservation of the Code of the Village of Homer Glen, Will County, Illinois. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Schaller?
I'll second it.
Trustee Holzhauser? Trustee Schaller?
This is our public tree ordinance. It is not the private one that's being worked on by the Environmental Committee. This is necessary for the
Morton Arboretum.
Morton Arboretum grant, and I have no issues.
Trustee Holzhauser?
I stand by what Trustee Schaller says.
Anyone else have anything to add?
No, I think it's great, and being that Morton Arboretum is considering a grant, once we have this done, I'm appreciative of Trustee Schaller's work and the village that assisted.
I'm appreciative of Taylor's work.
There you go.
Who did all the work.
And staff that, okay, and yourself as assistant.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Schaller?
Aye.
Trustee Holzhauser?
Aye.
Trustee Muller? Trustee Lepore?
Aye.
Trustee Reinders?
Aye.
Trustee Mason?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 9, consider for approval resolution number 26-008, a resolution approving the following executive session minutes. November 12th, 2025, and December 10th, 2025. The executive session minutes still require confidential treatment and are not to be released. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Reinders? Trustee Muller? Trustee Reinders?
Nothing.
Trustee Muller? Any other trustees? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Reinders?
Aye.
Trustee Muller? Trustee Schaller?
Aye.
Trustee Mason?
Aye.
Trustee Holzhauser?
Aye.
Trustee Lepore?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 10, consider for approval the village manager to prepare a request for proposal, RFP, for an independent analysis of police services and feasibility study for the establishment of a municipal police department. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'm going to give it to Schaller.
I'll make that
Trustee
motion.
Schaller and Trustee Reinders. Trustee Schallers, do you have anything? Schaller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Now, this is what I brought up at the last meeting under new business, and Administrator Baber has feverishly worked on this RFP, so I can't wait for it to go out.
Trustee Reinders?
I don't agree. I think this is a waste of time and money. We've done this so many times in the past, and we've come up, we know that it's going to cost us $20 to $25 million, and I believe that the Will County Sheriff does a great job. I don't think that there's a need for this.
Trustee Muller?
No, I too feel that the Will County Sheriff does an exceptional job. Like I said, the exorbitant amount of money that it would cost to establish our own police department is concerning to me.
Trustee Mason?
I agree with Trustee Scheller because I don't think we're actually trying to replace the Will County Sheriffs. That's not the goal. I believe it is to find out our costing and where we're at. I know Will County has inquired that they would like to know where they sit with us. And
It's their job.
yeah, well, and I agree, but I want to cross-reference. Sometimes there's checks and balances. And I want to make sure that, you know, as things increase or do we need more service? Do we need more coverage? Are we paying the proper amount? Are we not? Are we overpaying? I'd like to know all those things as well. And I think that's the goal. I don't think it's to replace the Will County Sheriffs. I think Lieutenant Piazza does a great job.
Trustee Lepore?
I agree that the Will County Sheriff does an excellent job within our community, but inquiring minds do want to know these answers to these questions. As campaigning, as I've been doing lately, many residents do have this exact question, and I think perhaps a study would put those minds at ease. Thank you.
Trustee Holzhauser?
I concur with fellow trustees on the job Will County Sheriff's doing. I do agree with the independent analysis of the police services just to see an apples to apples comparison to what they feel that they're giving us. I wouldn't mind looking at that, but I really can't get behind a feasibility study for the establishment of a municipal police department because, like Rose said, we can't afford that. It's just it's a non-starter for me.
So this all stemmed because the Will County, I think it was the Finance Committee, I think it was that committee, started looking into our contract with the Will County Sheriff's Office. In my opinion, it's because the political arena is starting to heat up and they wanted to kind of dive in and put an extra nail in us. So I think this study is good in that effect, but having our own police department, we know, because we actually have other municipalities, other villages and cities contacting us asking how we work with the sheriff's office and how they can transition from working with their county instead of having their own police department. So it's, you know, it's up and down, but I think we need something done to, when we go to bat to argue our defense at the county level, I'd like to know where we stand and, you know, have a leg to stand on with this.
Evaluate objectively. I mean, that's what we need to do. I think Trustee Scheller was trying.
Should this?
Hold on. I'm going to go back around the room because this seems like a pretty divisive topic here. Trustee Scheller?
Just for clarification, the tentacle of looking at what a police department would cost organically is just for the mere fact of knowing if residents come forward and go, why can't we have our own police department? Mm-hmm. We have a up-to-date dollar figure of what it's going to cost. And not from just us at the board throwing numbers out there. We're talking about all in from buildings to insurance to pension payments, all of the things that bake the cake to have a police department, I think is important for the village residents to understand what services we're getting through the Will County Sheriff compared to what it would cost us if we had our own police department. Not to throw shade on the Will County Sheriff's Department. That is not the goal here at all. It is more to show residents what that cost would be. And what we've done in the past with that part-time police department referendum does not necessarily give a holistic view of what that's going to cost.
Trustee Reinders?
I just believe that we've done this study in the past, and you know, and I purely and truly and honestly believe in my heart that the only reason this has been brought forward now is because it's a political election. I honestly and truly believe that, and that's why I'm so totally against this, because we've done this. We have figures, you know, we've looked at, I remember when Carmen actually did a whole analysis of what it was going to cost. I mean, and it's everything that Trustee Scheller had mentioned, pensions, you know, your building, your jail, your police cars, you know, your insurances, all these things all add up, and they came out with a figure of, and I'm almost positive it's $21 million, and that's going back 4 years. You know, so that's why I feel the way I do. I mean, if I thought that this town can afford something, like we are a town of 24,000 people. Mm-hmm. There is no way we can afford 20 to 25 or $30 million to build our own and to be able to fund pensions and a whole police force. So I just think that, you know, because this is an election time, that this is the only reason that this subject has been brought up.
Trustee Muller?
Excuse me. No, I wholeheartedly agree with what Trustee Reinders is saying, but also stemming off of what Trustee Schaller said, I have to agree with him as well, too. You have so many, I'm going to call them the Facebook warriors, who have all this input of, we need a police department, we need this, we need that. I do think an outside entity putting together this, or doing this study and this analysis will, he said, put it in black and white in front of some of these people where they can see the real numbers, so.
Trustee Mason? I'm going to go back to the trustees and then you.
Yes, again, an independent study, and this actually is created, as you stated, through Will County's finance, who decided they wanted to do an assessment. Well, anytime in my private life that I wanted, somebody was coming to me and asking me for a certain amount of money or telling me that this was the cost of doing business, one of the things I would do was assessment and evaluate, bringing us back to staff levels, officer assignments, supervisor accountability, long-term agreements. So I want to know that our ducks are in a row too, and that we're paying the proper amounts, and we can sit down, and our agreements were antiquated at best. Yes, they had been getting a rate increase. I think it was a 3 to 5%, depending on the year, Joe, because me and you had talked about this several different times. And I want to make sure we're paying the proper amounts too. And I want to make sure we have the adequate coverage. I want to make sure that, you know, we're matching apples to apples. Now, it's great to have, as Trustee Reinders and Scheller both state, the knowledge of what is today's cost of doing it. And I get all the maintenance, I get the retirement fund, I get the cost of salaries and equipment and housing, I get all that. It's great to know those numbers too. You always want to be on top of it. I'd rather know than not know.
Trustee Lepore?
I agree in multiple angles here. I agree with Trustee Reinders. This is very political. I also agree with Trustee Schaller. I think a study may be warranted. Again, after talking to many neighbors about many issues lately, hundreds of doors I've knocked, I can tell you this is actually something that people do ask me more often than you would think when you're out there. Why don't we have our own police department? Where's the money going? Why the sheriff is doing it? Educating the public is part of what we have to do to make sure that everything runs smoothly, and this may be necessary just to put this issue to bed. Thank you.
Trustee Holzhauser?
I guess just to build off of what Trustee Lepore was saying is, and also so we're on point here, is this is just a request for proposal. That request for proposal can always come back and we can say no. I believe it's two separate issues, and I think we're split on this board because they're two separate issues. So with that being said, I don't think it hurts to ask for the proposal, so I'd be in favor of asking for the proposal, but I think that, you know, it would take board approval to go in on either one of those. So, you know, it might come back and it's not too bad, and we say, let's take a look, kick the tires. But I do think what Will County gives us and what we expect from them should be defined, and I also do think education of our residents is very important. And if for a small nominal amount extra, it would be worth it to say, hey, you know, look, this is what it would cost you. You know, just we've heard the same thing about having a park district. You know, when we add a new taxing body, it goes crazy out there. You know, they didn't even want to pass the grocery tax, right? And that was a no-brainer. So can't raise taxes. So at least we give them the evidence why they can't. So.
Attorney?
Just briefly, and just kind of building off of what Trustee Holzhauser just shared. I think just for a point of clarification to the public, is the village board today being asked to adopt and establish its own municipal police department? Is that what they're voting on today? That answer is no, absolutely not. That's not before the board. Is the village being asked to expend any money at all on a consultant to assess what it would cost to have a municipal police department? That answer is no, not at all. It's simply to issue a request for a proposal to have consultants throughout the state of Illinois respond and share with the Village Board of Trustees what it would cost by way of dollars and cents for them to put together a study to do two things. One, to assess our current, to perform an analysis on the current level of police services that we currently pay the Will County for. And then two, to give us a number of what it would cost to put together a feasibility study for the establishment of a police department. That's it. The vote today has absolutely it doesn't spend any money at all. It simply is a request for a proposal to go out, to have consultants give the board some numbers for the public to see if it's feasible, to see if it's something that the board wants to consider in the future. That's it.
Thank you. I have two things. One, if we can get that study that Rose touched upon, I remember there was some discussion, but don't believe I actually ever saw the study that you're talking about, that Carmen supposedly did. I don't recall, so if you can maybe search for that. And then I do have to give props to Under Sheriff Jungles, because we had an incident that took place just a few days ago, Saturday, and he did, because I know we talked about communication, he did reach out to me right away, so communication is improving. I didn't want to put anything out there because they were making a release, and I didn't want to confuse anybody with my statement and theirs, so I think that was well handled. So thank you guys out there. Okay, so we are voting on the item at hand, L10. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Schaller.
Aye.
Trustee Reinders.
Pass.
Trustee Mason.
Aye.
Trustee Lepore.
Aye.
Trustee Muller.
Aye.
Trustee Holzhauser.
Aye.
Trustee Reinders.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, is there any old business? Is there any new business? Okay, is there a motion to go into executive session for discussion regarding personnel, discussion regarding pending and ongoing litigation, discussion regarding public utilities, and discussion, no, that's it. Is there a motion?
I'll second.
Trustee Muller, Trustee Mason, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll be back in a few moments.